On this Republic Day, take your first step towards your transformation.
Get unbeatable discounts on live courses, tests, and your favorite super elite plan.
And upgrade your preparations with India's topmost educators.
Come join us and let's start this change from today. Happy Republic Day.
Happy Republic Day.
Happy Republic Day.
Happy Republic Day.
Hi everyone, I welcome you all on the channel of Oliveboard. I hope I am audible and visible to all of you. Hi everyone. I hope you all can see me and hear me clearly. So today's session is going to be on PIB compilation for the December month. And before we start, just ensure that my audio and video is visible to everyone. Before we start, just ensure that I am audible and visible to everyone here. So alright, the PIB compilation will be in two parts. So in today's session, we will be completing reports, and in the second part, we will be going towards the next, what rest is left in the PIB compilation. And if you are a serious aspirant who is preparing for RBI Grade B examination, and be it NABARD or something else, it is very important for all of you to cover the PIB compilations and to cover the PIB news on a regular basis. So basically this particular session is for the December month. So this particular session will be for the December month, and we'll be covering PIB compilation for the December month. All right, starting with the session. So there is a good news for all of you that this is a Republic Day season. This is the Republic Day is very near, and on that regards, Oliveboard is providing you flat 52% off if you enroll yourself in the Plus batch. So you can get flat 50% off, and that you will get if you apply the code RDAY. Only then you will get a flat 52% off in the courses. So if you are a serious aspirant, go on the channel and enroll yourself in the Plus courses. Next, that Oliveboard is providing special features for all of you. That is on the Plus platforms. One is that you can get your notes in more easy and interesting manner. So the important section will be highlighted, and you can add your comments there. And of course, if you have some problem or if you have some eye issue, of course you can get access to dark mode as well, and you can hear to audio notes as well. So these are the special features that Oliveboard is providing you. So we have introduced Notes Plus. Which is providing you such features. Alright. Before starting with the today's session, let me confirm that today's session will be on the reports that are discussed in the PIB, and that too in the December month. So starting with the reports, first report we have is on household consumption expenditure survey that is done in the 2022-24. So the report of 2023 and 24 report is here with us. It was released in December. And now we are going to see the data, and we are going to analyze that for what purpose is our household expenditure survey. So basically, if I talk about household consumption expenditure survey, it basically watches, or it basically looks at the expenditure that is done by the households. So expenditure can be done on various segments. Like if I talk about, it can be done on goods and it can be done on services as well. So it considers that what expenditure is done by the households, where are people spending their money, and what else is included in it. Okay? So if I talk about goods, it can be in food items. It can be in food items, and it can include what? It can include non-food items as well. Okay? So proper data is given in this survey, that where a household is spending, what is the average amount that is being spent by the households, and what amount is being spent by the households on various things. even if that is food items or even that if that is non-food items. So if I talk about household consumption expenditure survey, so prior to everything, one important thing to remember or to learn is that it is released by which of the ministry. So you all have to remember that it is released by the Ministry of MOSPI, which is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, which is famously known as MOSPI. You could have seen in the newspaper articles or anywhere else also. So it is known as what? It is known as MOSPI, and it has other things also. But before that, it is important to know that household survey expenditure, जो हमारा household consumption expenditure survey है, that takes care of the expenditure. That is done by the household. So basically we'll see that where are people spending their money, what all is included in their expenditure, and if their expenditure is more than their income, or they are earning what, if they are earning more and they are spending less, or they are investing in the other sectors as well. So firstly we'll cover average monthly per capita expenditure, and if I talk about MPCE, this is what? This is the average amount of expenditure that is done by a particular person every month. ठीक है, so हम यहाँ पे क्या चीज देख रहे हैं कि एक person जो है वो एवरेज कितना खर्चा कर रहा है हर महीने, and we are taking care of one person only, and that too on average basis. And the data says that for 2023-24, the MPCE is estimated at 4,122 in rural areas, and it is 6,996 in the urban areas. Okay? So this thing is important to remember. If you get question here, this is very important that you quote this data there. Okay? Ab, there is a segment of urban and rural gap. Of course, जो हमारी societies हैं, फिर जो हमारा bifurcation है, that is urban areas and rural areas. So if we see the gap increasing, that means the gap between the rural and urban areas is increasing, है ना. जो rural area के जो लोग हैं, that is spending, उनका spending, और जो rural area, जो हमारे urban areas के लोग हैं, उनकी spending में कहीं ना कहीं gap जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा increase हो रहा है. So the data says that the gap has been narrowed down. The gap has been narrowed down to 70% in 2023-24 from what? From 71% in 2022 and 23, and this is indicating the consistent growth in the rural consumption. So the idea here is that if the gap is decreasing, it means rural consumption is increasing. Okay? There is a betterment in the rural consumption. So the lesser the gap between rural urban consumption shows that rural consumption, there is a betterment in the rural consumption. Clear? Now we'll talk about the class inequality. Class inequality refers to the difference between the wealth and income distribution. Okay? So the data says that bottom 5% of the rural households ranked by PCE have an average consumption of 1677, and the top 5% of the rural households report by MPCE is what? Is 10,137. So this is the data that shows the class inequality. Okay? Next we have a state-wise variation. Prior to this, we read about rural-urban gap, we read about class inequalities. Now we are jumping into what? We are jumping into state-wise variation. So the highest MPCE is observed in Sikkim. So the marginal, if I talk about marginal, हमारा जो monthly per capita expenditure है, that is seen highest in Sikkim, and if I talk about Chhattisgarh, that is on the lowest spot. अब उसके बाद if I talk about consumption pattern, so where are they consuming? Where are they consuming? Where are they spending their money? Where are they spending their income? Is the expenditure that are done by the households more than their income or not? So we will cover this in this particular data. So the consumption pattern says that in non-food items, non-food items account for a larger share of expenditure, that is 53% in rural areas and 60% in the urban areas. So this says that non-food items accounts for the larger share. Now non-food items includes anything. For example, if I talk about rent, maybe it can include transportation cost, maybe it can include your communication and other things as well. Majorly contributors to non-food spending include your conveyance, okay, your clothing and your durable goods. And if I talk about specifically about rent, so rent accounts for 7% on the non-food expenditure in the urban households and among the food household, among the food items. So I told you that people are doing expenditure on goods and services. So if I bifurcate my goods, goods are further bifurcated into what? Goods are further bifurcated into food products, food items and your non-food items. Okay? So we saw in non-food items people are highly spending in the you can say people are highly spending in the non-food items if I compare it with the food items. And when there is a concept of food items, so people are spending more on beverages and processed food, and this dominates their consumption. So whenever we talk about the consumption of food items, so you have to remember that the data says that people are consuming or people are spending more on what? People are spending more on beverages and they are spending more on the processed food. So this tells us about the health or consciousness of the society as well, that where they are moving, okay, where they are heading towards and how much they are taking care of their health. So this is what data says. Next is that there is decline in the consumption inequality. This says that a Gini coefficient that tells us the income inequality gap. So according to the Gini coefficient, a measure that tells us about the income inequality, the data says that it has been decreased in both the rural and the urban areas if I compare it with the previous year. Next, if I talk about the Gini coefficient, so it is basically a graph which represents what? Which represents our income inequality. So this measures income inequality on a scale of 0 and 1. And if the Gini coefficient, if you must have heard of the Lorentz curve as well, so it is a part of Gini coefficient only. Okay? A graph is made and this is your Lorentz curve. So if I talk about Gini coefficient, if it is 0, it shows that there is a perfect equality. Okay? And if I get to know that Lorentz curve, that Gini coefficient is equivalent to 1, that means that it is perfectly unequal. That means it is perfectly unequal. And if I talk about the lower Gini coefficient, so it indicates that there is a reduction in the inequality. So lower the Gini coefficient, there will be reduction in the inequality as well. Okay, higher the Gini coefficient, that means there is increase in the inequality. So I hope the difference is clear to all of you. Okay. Next, if I talk about household consumption expenditure survey, so I told you that it is what? It basically keeps an eye on the expenditure pattern of the households or expenditure pattern of the people. So it keeps an eye on what? It keeps an eye on the expenditure pattern of the people, expenditure pattern of the people, that where the consumption is done, now this is the short form of consumption, okay? Where the consumption is done, where the expenditure is from, and if their expenditure is more than equivalent or less than their income, okay? So these are the things that is taken care by the household consumption expenditure survey. So its objective is to gather data on household consumption and expenditure on the goods and services, and it is a primary indicator that shows that helps to assess poverty, inequality and social exclusion as well. And the conducting authority that conducts this household consumption expenditure survey, we have NSSO under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, who gives this report. Is everyone clear with this concept? Is this clear to everyone here? Next, coming to the question. So the question says that according to the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey, that is HCES 2023-24, which state has the lowest monthly per capita expenditure? We just discussed it that which of the state has lowest per capita, monthly per capita expenditure. coming back to the content that we just discussed, we discussed here that the highest MPCE is in Sikkim and Chhattisgarh is the one who has lowest MPCE. So the correct answer here is Chhattisgarh. Okay? Correct answer here is Chhattisgarh. So E is the correct answer. Next we have is trends and progress of banking in India 2023-24. Now this is the report that is released by RBI, and the main purpose of this report is to analyze the trend and the betterment of the banking sector, or to see that what is the position of the banking sector basically. So यहाँ पे क्या देखा जाता है, basically progress को analyze करा जाता है, देखा जाता है if the banking sector is moving in a particular in a right direction or not. So अगर मैं बात करूँ यहाँ पे trends and progress of banking in India 2000 report की 2023-24 report की, so you have to remember that it is published by RBI. So RBI is the body who published this report annually. So यहाँ पे एक और concept निकल कर आया है that this is an annual report. ठीक है, this is an annual report. It is published on an annual basis, like once in a year. Now under this provision of the Banking Regulation Act 1949, you have to remember this. Now what does this report provide? So it provides a comprehensive view and the progress and the performance of the banking sector. So this is basically the idea that RBI keeps a check or keeps an eye on that what is the performance of the banking sector and how it is performing. Okay. Next, if I talk about this particular news, if we talk about data, so the report says, firstly it discusses about the macroeconomic and financial overview. Macroeconomic as in we are collectively talking about everything. Microeconomic means if you are talking about a particular sector only, and macroeconomic takes care of the every section of the society. So if you are including everything, that comes under the macroeconomic. So if you are watching everything through a broader perspective, that means you are watching things through the macro perspective. You are watching things through the macro perspectives. Now we are going to discuss about the global trend. So the global trend says that inflation is moderating globally. Inflation is moderating globally due to synchronized monetary tightening. Now this is a core economic concept. Monetary tightening is a core economic concept which says that if I increase the interest rate, IR refers to interest rate. So if I increase the interest rate on the loans that are taken by the people, this will do what? This will reduce the amount of loan. This will reduce the amount of loan that is taken by the government, that is taken by the people. So if the amount of loan is reduced, so that means the supply, there is decrease in the supply as well. There is decrease in the supply as well. So if I assume that there is inflation in the market and I have increased the interest rate, I am taking myself as RBI and I have increased the interest rate. So as and when I increase the interest rate, people will stop taking extra amount of loan from me. है ना, people will do a thing that they will not purchase much of the loan. They will not go to the banks and purchase. They will not go to the banks and ask for loans. Why? Because they have to pay extra amount as an interest now. Because the RBI has increased the interest rate. So this is known as what? This is known as tightening policy, or you can say monetary tightening policy. Okay? So this says the data says that since it has been taken in a synchronized form, the inflation is also getting moderated. Matlab inflation is also getting slowed down. Next, the challenges that persist in achieving disinflation. Disinflation means when there is an increase in the inflation. Disinflation targets due to geopolitical conflicts and commodity price volatility and also the climate changes. Now, the data says that major central banks have started easing policy rates in 2024. Now there are two types of policies. One I have discussed here, that is tight policy, and another one is easy monetary policy. So the data says that majority of major of the central banks are trying its best to do what? They have started easing its policy interest rates. Okay. Now if I come on the Indian context, so the data says that Indian banks have achieved a low record of GNPA ratio. GNPA is what? This is gross non-performing asset. This is what? Gross non-performing asset. And we all know that non-performing asset are what? Non-performing assets arises when a person is unable to pay back the loan for more than 90 for equivalent or more than 90 days. Okay? So that is a situation where a pop-up comes that the customer has achieved what, that he has been through the NPA. So we are talking here about, the report says that Indian banks have achieved a low record ratio of 2.7% by March 2024, the lowest in the 13 years, and further this is dropping down to 2.5% by September 2024. And the lower we get in gross, the lower are GNPAs, the better is the banking facility, because this shows that there are less number of defaulters that are included in our sector. Next, it says that profitability in the Indian banking sector has been on an upswing for the past 6 years. So this is a betterment of our banking sector. Next, it says that non-banking financial institutions witnessed robust credit expansion. Credit expansion as in that people are taking more of loans. People are taking more of loans with the strengthened balance sheets and capital buffers. Now GNPA are falling to 3.4% by the September 2024, which is of course good thing. Next, it says that capital to risk weighted asset ratio stood at 16.8% in September, complying with the regulatory standards. And then it says that RBI requires banks to maintain a minimum CRAR which is 9%, and if you have read Basel III norms, then the Basel III norm says that it should be at 8%, but the RBI says that okay, you can go it with the 9% as well. So this is what data says. Now CRAR, it measures the bank's capital against the risk weighted assets, ensuring the capital financial stability. And of course, whenever we'll start with the lecture, we'll start these technicals, we'll cater to these technical terms as well. Now it says that bank's profitability is continued to rise, with the return on assets is 1.4%. That is in the first half of the 2024-25. So this is what they have expected, and return on the equity is 14.6% in the financial year 2024. Okay. If now we talk about banking regulations and supervision, so it says that it talks about regulatory enhancement. So Connect to Regulate program, it was introduced to involve stakeholders in the regulatory formation, and in the early phases, the main emphasis was on the early risk detection through the macro stress tests, early warning indicators, and fraud vulnerability indexes. And for that to solve that problem, जो RBI है, it is using various techniques, be it in terms of technology, be it in terms of digitalization, be it in terms of AI as well. So RBI or banking sector is trying its best to reduce what? To reduce the vulnerabilities, to reduce the you can say defaulter risk by using AI and using various technologies. Okay? So this is what our data says. Next, if I talk about gold loans and top-up loans. Now, top-up loans are what? You have already taken loan from a bank, but on that loan you have taken one additional loan. So that is what? That is called as top-up loans. So you have already taken a loan, but you are taking one more loan. That is known as top-up loans. So what are the conditions of the gold loans and top-up loans? So it has said that strengthening and monitoring the tighter regulations for the gold loans. Okay? The government, the banking sector is trying its best to more regulated and to make it more tighter. And the top-up loans against the movable assets to be treated as unsecured loans to mitigate the risk. So in order to reduce the risk, the RBI says that top-up loans should be taken against the movable assets, should be treated as unsecured loans. So if someone is taking top-up loan on the movable assets, that should be avoided. So basically this is the idea. And if I talk about the consumer protection, so discussion is done on the elimination of the foreclosure charges for the MSME sector, MSEs, and stricter KYC regulations that are mandating timely updates and CKYCR integration. So these are the steps that are taken by the RBI to protect the consumer, to protect the interest of the consumer. Okay. Next we have is about the payment system. So we are increasing the diaspora of the payment system as well. You could have heard about the unified lending interface and you could have heard about the unified payment interface as well. So we are increasing the area of these two systems, be it internationally. Okay. So UPI and RuPay cards are now integrated with the payment systems in countries like Singapore, UAE and Bhutan as well. So we are increasing, we are distributing our system outside the boundaries as well. Okay. Now there is a deployment of the UPI like systems is underway in Peru and Namibia. So if I talk about the technological advancements, so a transitioning is done of the check truncation system to a real-time settlement model. Now what is check truncation system? So basically हम करते क्या है कि हम चेक काट के देते हैं, but this and under this system the complete process is in the online system. ठीक है, the complete process is done through online mode only, and extending its beneficiaries name lookup facilities to NEFT and RTGC to reduce the fraud and errors. So these are the steps that are taken by the RBI to increase or to make our payment system more secure. Next we have is digital push. So new platforms such as unified lending interface. So what we used to see in unified payment interface, that paying from one person to another is getting very easy. And similar is the concept of unified lending interface, but the concept here is lending. So basically here we are talking about the credit facilities or credit system. We are talking here about our credit system. So making credit available at an easy pace, or you can say easily giving them credit is the main objective of the unified lending interface. And the open credit enablement network are designed to improve the credit availability for individuals and for small businesses as well. And next it says that over 6 lakh of loans amounting to 27,000 crores has been disbursed through unified lending interface, which is a pilot program. So this is one of the achievements of the unified lending interface, that it has achieved this much amount. It has achieved this much amount. Next we have is about financial inclusion. Financial inclusion refers to providing financial accessibility to each and every person. For example, कि यहाँ पे basically concept क्या है कि जो benefit है, जो financial benefit है that is provided by the government to the people of India, it should be reach out to each and every section of the society. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे if I talk about the financial inclusion, so there is a concept of National Strategy for Financial Inclusion 2.0 which focuses on the deepening of inclusion. Which focuses on the deepening of inclusion, as in that more correcting it more, or you can say कि इसको और ज़्यादा बेहतर करना, so that benefit is provided to each and every section of society. Addressing gender gaps, improving the quality of services, and a comprehensive review. If I talk about the comprehensive review of the lead bank scheme to enhance the rural financial services. And if I talk about the progress metrics, so the expansion of the banking system in remote areas under the initiative like PM Jan Dhan Yojana and self-help groups financing. So these are the steps that are taken by the governments, and these are taken by the banking sector as well to improve our financial inclusion. And of course there are other schemes as well. There are other schemes as well that are mainly focused on improving our financial system, or that are mainly focused on improving our financial inclusion. Next, if I talk about climate changing initiatives, so we have to achieve everything. Of course, we have to achieve targets, but we have to take care of our climate as well. So the RBI says that it has a concept of sustainable financing. Now, sustainable financing says that everything will be done by taking care of the environment. So the financing for the renewable energy projects included under the priority sector lending, and it includes what? It includes sovereign green bonds that are issued to promote environmentally sustainable projects. So if there comes a concept of sustainable financing, so this is the one that you can remember. Okay, if I talk about regulatory measures, so draft frameworks for the climate risk disclosure and stress testing have been introduced, and the establishment of the reserve banking climate risk information system, that is RBI Chris, the main purpose of this is to bridge the climate related data gaps. The main purpose of this is to bridge the climate related data gaps. Next, if I talk about the emerging technologies, so of course, ULI, Unified Lending Interface, is one of the emerging technologies. We are similar like our payment system. We are trying our best to increase the system of our lending interface as well. So similarly, if I talk about digital lending enhancement, so creation of the public repositories for digital lending apps associated with the digital regulated entities, this is one of the steps. Now again, there is an introduction of Mule Hunter, AITM, AI, ML based fraud detection models. Now this is to decrease the fraud or financial fraud in the banking sector. Okay? And of course, if I talk about the AI and ethical standards, there is a launch of the framework of responsible and ethical enablement of AI, that is free AI, So you have to remember its full form for the financial institutions as well. So remember, okay, this is easy. Now, there are many steps that are taken to protect the interest of the consumers as well. Now, if I talk about that, then there is a transparency in lending. Now, the government, the people, the banking sector is trying its best to increase the transparency so that people or the consumer can build its trust. So, the people or the customer can build its interest. So, transparency in the lending system is done in a way that there is an implementation of the key fact statement for all of the retail and for the MSME term loans, ensuring that there is a clarity in the loan terms. Next, if I talk about the addressing of digital frauds, then strengthening of the onboarding and monitoring system to curb the misuse of the mule accounts. And of course, there is a collaboration with the law enforcement agencies as well to tackle the systematic fraud risks. Now, these are the steps taken to increase or to take care the interest of the consumer, to take care of the interest of consumer. Okay, this is clear to everyone. Next we have is regional rural banks, cooperative and non-banking financial sectors. How is their performance, how they are performing. Now, firstly, we have urban and rural cooperative banks. So, if I talk about urban and rural cooperative banks, so the data says that continued efforts are being put to consolidate and strengthen the governance and risk management. And if I specifically talk about NBFCs and housing finances, so NBFCs showed a robust credit system, growth and improved capital adequacy under the scale-based regulatory framework, and the analysis of the financial performance has been done of the RRBs as well. And be it RRBs and be it self-help groups, the performance is in a better way. Okay. Next we have is rising share of unsecured loans. Now, the data says, the report says that the proportion of the unsecured loans in the scheduled commercial banks before declining slightly to the now has increased to 25.5%. So the defaulters, or the you can say the increase, there is an increase in the unsecured loans. Now it is 25.5%, that is the data of March 2023, and before declining slightly to the 25.3%, that is in March 2024. So this is clear. And in response to the RBI introduced stricter regulations in the November 2024, including raising of risk weights and settling exposure limits to cap the maximum lending to the single borrower or group. Now, RBI has also flagged concerns regarding the top-up loans. Top-up loans, I told you that you have taken a loan, considering that you have already taken a loan and you are taking additional loan on that. So that is a top-up loan, which are often approved with the inadequate scrutiny and weak the compliances with the guidelines. Now, some reports suggest that misuse of these loans, including with the diversion or to stock market activities and to mitigate the risk in 2023, the RBI mandated that top-up loans secured against the depreciating movable goods, and they can be classified as the unsecured loans. So, crux to this report is that top-up loans, which are taken against the movable goods, are considered as unsecured loans. So this is the step that has been taken by the banking sector, which has been taken by the government, by the RBI, taking into consideration this data. Okay. Next, we have the impact of the unsecured loans. Impact of the rising unsecured loans. So default and stresses, if I talk about defaults and stress, higher unsecured increase our NPAs, which is our non-performing assets. So increase, if there is an increase in the unsecured loans, of course people will get defaulters, okay, people will not be able to pay more money. That shows that there is increase in the non-performing assets as well. So there is fumble, or you can say there is imbalance in our balance sheet as well. So this would strain our banks and NBFCs as well. And of course, because of this, there will be increase in the inflation as well. So reduction of the disposable income from the fraudster and high rate curb spending fueling inflation. And if I talk about the consumer risk, so easier credit access, but higher rates can lead to debt traps. So if to solve this problem, banks or RBI, if increases the interest rate, this will lead to this problem. Okay? So this is a trap in which government is, the banking sector or the RBI is trying its best to come out of it. So if I talk about the financial instability, rural and urban consumers face economic stress, and this is lowering their confidence as well. So these are the impacts of the rising unsecured loans on the various or in the different segments of society. Next we have is rise and dark platform. Now dark patterns are basically a strategy of the banking sector to make consumers more confused in a manner. So what do? ये क्या करते हैं कि कुछ ना कुछ ऐसे strategy they play with your psychology. They I would say they picturize something that is very hazy in manner, and that is known as dark patterns. That is doing what? That means that some banks or some individuals are playing with the psychological means of your consumers. So the report says that it has raised concerns about the dark patterns as well, that is manipulative design practices. So that is the whatever is shown or whatever is told by that particular person to the consumers, that is manipulative in manner. That means a person is playing with the psychology of that customer. So the RBI is concerned about the dark patterns as well, and the Central Consumer Protection Authority has issued guidelines to address and to regulate these practices as well. And if I talk about RBI, it is also assessing their prevalence among the regulatory entities to take appropriate measures. And of course, there is a concept of high employee attrition. High employee attrition is a situation where number of employees are leaving the company at one time only. So this can be this can be because of multiple reasons. Maybe the environment of the office is not good, maybe the process is very long, the enrollment process is very long, or maybe there can be other reasons as well. So the RBI is concerned that the high employee attrition is increasing over the period of time, and of course if there is some problem, then only we are facing this problem. So the RBI says that the attrition rate in the banking sector has increased to 25%. This is not a small number, 25% over the last 3 years, and this trend has raised concerns about the potential of operational risk that includes services disruption and loss of institutional expertise and your higher recruitment expenses as well. So these are the concerns that are taken into consideration by the RBI, and RBI is trying its best to solve these problems. Next we have is slippage ratio. So we all know that people trade in the stock markets. So slippage ratio is basically the difference between what we assume that at what rate our you can say trend will get settled, and the actual rate at which our trade gets settled. The difference between them is known as slippage ratio. Okay, so the slippage ratio has shown improvement over the period of time in 2023 and 24. However, if I talk about the private sector, However, if I talk about the private sector banks, it has continued to report higher slippage ratio compared to the public sector banks. So, private are contributing more towards the slippage ratio for the third consecutive year due to the larger addition of the fresh non-performing assets. And if I talk about the rising banking frauds, so we just read that government is using basically different of technologies, be it AI, be it using technologies as well. Government is trying its best to reduce the fraudster risk or to reduce the frauds in the banking sector. So the report highlights that there is a significant rise in the banking fraud cases, which surged to 21,367 crores during the April-September 2024. If I compare it with the previous year, which was 2,623. So you can see the number, you can see that there is a drastic increase in the amount of the fraudsters. There is a drastic increase in the amount of fraudsters. Now these fraudsters pose risks to bank reputation and of course operations and overall the financial stability and as well. So this is a point of question to the banking system as well, that how their operations are being done, how they are working, that there is a drastic increase in the number of fraudsters, in the number of banking frauds. Next, what has RBI recommended? Taking into considerations the issues that we just read, taking into consideration the data that we just read, what has RBI recommended on that? So in order to address the attrition issue, which is that a lot of employees are leaving the banks at a same period of time, at a particular period of time. So the RBI says that RBI has suggested that banks should implement various strategies such as better employee onboarding process, enhancing the हमारे जो training programs है उसको enhance करना, mentorship initiatives should be taken, comparative benefits should be given, and there should be supportive work environment and not a biased one. So these are the steps that are given by the RBI, taking into consideration the RBI attrition issue. Next, the RBI emphasizes the need of the stricter adherence to credit appraisal processes and prudential guidelines to mitigate the growing risk associated with the unsecured loans. So the RBI in the report, the RBI has given a recommendation on the unsecured loans and on the issue of the attrition issue. Okay, is this thing clear to everyone? Is this thing clear to everyone? Next we have is domestic migration in India. Now we all know that migration refers to if you are the one who is moving from one place to another. But in this particular news, if in this particular report, we are talking about the domestic migration. It means that you are moving from one place to another, but within the territory of your nation only. If you move beyond the territory of your nation, that is your international migration. So domestic migration is the one, and it can vary according to the places. It can be state to state. Okay, it can be, if it is international, it can be you can say one area to another area. If it is international, it can be one country from another country. So it depends on the various areas. So it is released by the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, which is EAC PM. So it has released a report that is known as 400 Million Dreams, which examine the changes in the migration pattern in India since 2011 census. So the report, basically the idea of the report is how the migration patterns are changing, what has been changed over the period of time, and according to the time, what are the changes that our economy is watching, and what all are the factors that are contributing to this change in the pattern. So firstly, if I talk about the domestic migration, so you can see here that it is the movement of individuals within the country from one region to another. Okay, that means you are within the territory of your nation only. Now territory also varies according to different factors. We'll discuss that in some other session, but here the concept is that you are moving from one place to another, but within your country only. But if you are migrating from one place to another, the reasons behind it can be your push factors and your pull factors. Now, if I talk about push factors, then push factors include limited job opportunities. For example, in your in the area where you are living, there are lack of job opportunities there. So you have decided to shift from your own area to another area in order to get job or in order to find more job opportunities. So this can be one of the reasons that comes under the push factor. Next we have is natural disaster. Next we have is inadequate education and healthcare. So these are the few factors that are responsible for a person to migrate from one place to another. Next we have is pull factors. Pull factors include the betterment of the economic opportunities. If you are the one who wants to increase your living standard, if you want to increase higher living standard, higher living of life, so it comes under the pull factors, and you are transferring, or you are migrating from one place to another. Okay. Now the data says that there is the decline in the migrant numbers. So if I discuss the data here, so the data says that domestic migrants have been decreased by approximately 12% from 45.7 crore to 40.20 crore in 2023, and the migration rate has been dropped from about 38% to 29% during the particular time of period. Now, if I talk about the migration trends, so short distance migration is the most common. It means that you are not taking, or you are not covering the longer distance. You are migrating from one place to another, but the distance that is covered by you is shorter in manner. So the short distance migration is very common in manner, as greater distances deter labor mobility. Next is that migration primarily originates near major urban hubs like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore and Kolkata. And why these cities only? Because like Bangalore is a IT hub. Bangalore is a IT hub. Bangalore is also known as IT hub. So of course, people or youth will get more opportunities, more employment opportunities here. So these are the major cities where people prefer to go. Okay. Next we have is prominent migration routes. So the major state level migration involves यूपी से दिल्ली तक, ठीक है, गुजरात से महाराष्ट्र तक, तेलंगाना से आंध्र प्रदेश तक, या फिर बिहार से दिल्ली तक. So these are the prominent migrant places. Now if I talk about the shift in the migrant share, so increase, if I talk about the increase, so states like in West Bengal, there is seen increase in the state of West Bengal. Rajasthan has seen increase. Karnataka has seen increase. They have seen rise in the proportion of the incoming migrants. So it means that people are moving more towards these states. And if I talk about decrease, so Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh has witnessed a decline in the migrant share. Okay? So these are the countries that you have to remember. Next we have is reasons for the decline in the migrant numbers. Now what are the reasons? What could be reasons? According to you, what could be reasons? So if I think of it in a general way, so I would think it as, okay, there could be increase in the infrastructure, there could be increase in the accessibility. I would be able to get whatever I want in my region only. So basic priorities of every parent for their children is to provide them better education, to provide them healthcare opportunities, to provide them proper healthcare, है ना, job should be there. So I am assuming that okay, these things are fulfilled in my area only, and I need not to move from one place to another. So the reasons could be that there can be increase in the or improvement in the infrastructure. Now infrastructure includes various segments, be it in education, be it in transportation, be it in communication, be it in technology and others also. So development of roads, education, healthcare, public transport at a place of origin reduces the need to migrate. Next, if I talk about localized economic growth, so you are living in your own city and your own city or your own area is growing in a manner. So it means government is trying its best to provide you best of the opportunities in your area only. So job creation, that is closure to the rural areas, it must be done so that we can increase, we can decrease the number of migrants who migrate from one place to another. This can be one of the factors that can be taken into consideration. Job creation should be closer to the rural areas, and it has diminished the necessity for the longer distance migration. So these are the steps, maybe these are the steps are taken by the government who has shown decrease in the migration level. Okay? Now, steps towards the domestic migrants welfare in India. These are various schemes, or these are various steps that are taken by the government of India to decrease the level of migration. So one is Interstate Migrant Workman Act 1979. Another one is Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, that is related to our healthcare sector. Next is One Nation One Ration Card scheme, which facilitates what? Which facilitates the ration card probability across the country, and it allows the migrant workers and their families to access subsidized food wherever you go. So if you are in your own region, and if you are enrolled yourself, if you have enrolled yourself in One Nation One Card, and if you are moving from one place to another, you can access that facility in other region as well. So this can be one of the major things. Next we have is a report on India's state of forest report. Now, since it is related to forest report, we are going to talk about the, you can say that in how much area the forest is there. We are going to read about the area that is covered under the trees. So we are basically going to see that how much area is being covered by the forest and how much area is being covered by the trees. So basically we'll get an idea that about our environment, about our sustainability as well. So the report says that the Indian State of Forest Report 2023, which is ISFR, released by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So बच्चे, prior to everything, prior to reading the report itself, one thing that you all have to do is to understand that for what purpose is the report, what does it show. You have to understand about the scheme. And this is prior to reading the data, and you have to take care of the ministry as well. You have to take care of the ministry as well, that which ministry releases it. Okay? So if I talk about the India State of Forest Report, so Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Changes is the one who releases it, and it is a biennial publication of the Forest Survey of India. First published in 1987. It was first published in 1987. The 2023 edition marks the 18th report of in this series. Okay, is it clear to everyone? Now coming to the data that RBI that is provided to us. So it highlights about the forest and tree cover, that how much area is covered by the forest and how much area is covered by the trees. So it says that total forest and total cover is what? It is 8,27,357 square kilometer. The total forest and the tree covered has increased to in 25.7%. So it means we are shifting towards afforestation of the country geographical area, up from 24.62% as per 2021 assessment. Now the forest cover area alone is 7,15,343 square kilometer, that is 21.676%. And if I talk about the tree cover, then it is 1,12,014 square kilometer, that is 3.41%. So there is increase since the 2021 data. There is increase of 1,445 square kilometer, in which forest cover is increased by 156 square kilometer. And if I solely talk about the tree cover, then it has increased to, there is addition of 1,289 square kilometer. So this is the data about forest and tree cover. Next, if I talk about states with the maximum increase, now which states are those who has increased to the maximum? So forest, if I talk about forest and tree cover both, so Chhattisgarh is the one who has increased, who has been added to 684 square kilometer. Uttar Pradesh, there is increase in the Uttar Pradesh of 559 square kilometer. And if I talk about Odisha, then there is increase of 559 square kilometer. Rajasthan has addition of 394 square kilometer. And if I particularly talk about forest area, then Mizoram is the one who has addition of 242 square kilometer. Gujarat has addition of 180 square kilometer, and Odisha has addition of 152 square kilometer. So you can see that there is addition of the forest and tree cover areas as well, which shows that we are focusing on what? We are focusing on sustainable environment. We are focusing on sustainable environment, and we are more focused on achieving our sustainable development goals. We are more focused on achieving our more sustainable development goals. Now this is a task for you, that there are 2 sustainable development goals associated with this particular news. You have to tell me that which 2 SDGs are there which comes under or which are associated with this news. And you can also say that we are becoming more environment friendly. We are becoming more environment friendly. ठीक है, the report says that we are becoming more environment friendly. Now if I consider the top states by area, so the largest forest and tree cover area is in Madhya Pradesh, that is 85,724 square kilometer. Arunachal Pradesh has 6783 square kilometer. Maharashtra has 65,383 square kilometers. And if I talk about solely about the largest forest cover, so Madhya Pradesh has 77,073 square kilometer, Arunachal Pradesh has 65,882 square kilometer, Chhattisgarh has 55,812 square kilometer. So this is what the data says. Now if I talk about the percentage of forest cover, so highest coverage is done by the Lakshadweep, which is 91.33%. Next comes Mizoram, which is 85 point something. Andaman and Nicobar is 81 point something, which is 81.62%. And if I talk about states and UTs within the 33% of forest cover area, so it is 19, with the 8 states exceeding what it is. These include 8 states including 75%. So Mizoram, Lakshadweep, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Tripura and Manipur have forest cover that exceeds the 75%, which are 8 states. And UTs as well. ठीक है, correct. Next we have, if I talk about mangrove cover, so mangroves, there are total mangrove coverage in India which is 4,992 square kilometer, and representing a net decrease in the 7.43 square kilometer. And in the forest coverage area and in the trees coverage area, we saw a increase in that. And if I talk about mangroves, there is decrease in that if I compare it with the 2021 census data. And Gujarat is the one which has witnessed reduction in the mangrove forest cover area, and while jo Andhra Pradesh hai and jo Maharashtra hai, it has shown some growth in the mangroves areas. Now if I consider Gujarat, there can be Gujarat must have witnessed decrease in the mangrove area because of the development that is done by that is being done in the Gujarat. Now if I talk about the bamboo resources, so bamboo bearing area is 1,54,670 square kilometer, and there is increase in of 5,227 square kilometer if I compare it with 2021. So there is increase in the forest area. I am writing it in a short way. There is increase in the trees area. There is decrease in the mangroves. And there is increase in the bamboo coverage. Clear? Clear to everyone? Next, if I talk about carbon stock, so total of 7,285.5 million tons is there. There is an increase in it. If I compare it with 2021, there is an increase of 81.5 million tons. And achieve kitna hua hai? It has achieved 30.43 billion tons of CO2 equivalent to carbon stock, nearing India's nationally deterring contribution, that is the target of 2.5% to 3% billion tons additional to carbon sink by 2030. Annually, timber production potential ki agar main baat karu, so the trees outside the forest, they are 91.5 million cubic meters, And if I talk about what is the significance of the forest report 2020-23, why it is very significant for us. So the data says that it provides critical data for the policymakers as well, for the planners as well, and for the researchers as well. So accordingly, when they see the data, by analyzing the data, accordingly they will plan for the further improvement, they will plan for the further infrastructure development. So if I talk about the next significance, so it particularly talks about aids in monitoring forest and tree resources, contributing to the natural resource conservation and management as well. So of course there is increase in the forest and trees coverage area, and which is a good news for this is a good thing for our environment and for ecology as well, and for our from our economy perspective as well, because accordingly if the planners decide, they can take measures accordingly. Next we have is financial stability report December 2024. ठीक है. Now financial, अगर मैं specifically financial stability report की बात करूँ, so it talks about it considers the stability in the banking sector, और you can say कि जो हमारा banking sector है या फिर जो हमारा फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम है वो कितना ज़्यादा स्टेबल है, या फिर उसमें रिस्क जो है वो ज़्यादा इन्वॉल्व है, कम इन्वॉल्व है. सो बेसिकली अगर एक लेमैन लैंग्वेज में आइडिया ले तो फाइनेंशियल जो हमारी रिपोर्ट है, जो हमारी स्टेबिलिटी रिपोर्ट है, फाइनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी रिपोर्ट है, वो क्या देखती है, इट कंसीडर्स द बैंकिंग सेक्टर एंड योर फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम एज वेल, योर फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर एज वेल, एंड इट टेक्स केयर, इट कंसीडर्स दैट इफ दैट इज गोइंग ऑन अ perfect in a perfect way or not. So it considers what? It considers the stability of the financial sector. Now what are the highlights of the report? So first is the global macro financial risks. What are the global macro financial risks that are associated with this particular segment? So if I talk about global resilience, so the global financial system remained resilient and economic moderation. Geopolitical tensions are there, of course, and there is monetary policy normalization as well. So if I talk about the period of COVID-19, of course, after that banks started shifting towards tighter monetary policy, but now the report says that it is normalizing itself, and of course the situation is also getting better. Public debt की अगर मैं बात करूँ, so it has projected to exceed of $100 trillion by the end of 2024, driven by the US and China. Since if I talk about the emerging technologies, so emerging markets and the developing economies face heightened risk due to foreign currency denominated debt and your fiscal vulnerabilities as well. And if I talk about asset valuation and your volatility, so global equity markets has experienced high valuation with the stressed PE ratios. Equity markets corrections there are in August 2024 were triggered by yen carry trade unwinding. The impact that has impacted the global currencies and your financial stability as well. So यहाँ पे अगर मैं main चीज़ देखूँ, what is the main thing for all of you is your public debt, which shows that there is increase in the US and China. Increase in US and China. And if I talk about emerging economies as well, of course they also want funding, and for that they take help of debt only, be it internal or be it external. So this is what included in it. Next, if I talk about domestic macro financial risks, it includes your economic growth. So what is the data of the economic growth? So the report says that India remains the fastest growing major economy with the GDP growth that is projected at 6.6% for 2024 and 25. So the report says that if India is compared to other nations comparatively, India has performed better if it is compared to other nations, and it has of course shown betterment in the economic perspectives also, and it has mainly kept the things in a stabilized manner if it is compared with the other nations. Now it is driven by the revival of rural consumption, your increased government spending, and your strongest services exports. Now if I talk about inflation, then we just said that the things are getting better, things are getting in control. What happened in COVID-19, that that banking sector or central banks of every nation started shifting towards a tighter monetary policy. But now the things are getting more better, and inflation is also said to be in control if I compare it with that time. Okay. So the inflation says that the CPI inflation has moderated to 5.5% in November 2024, but risks are still associated with it. Risks are still there because there are many of the conflicts as well. There are many of the problems are as well. For example, we have geopolitical tensions, we have climate tensions as well. So these are the events that are still persisting, and they can become one of the factors for increase in inflation as well. And if I talk about your external sector, so trade deficit is there. Trade deficit is getting widened. Trade deficit is what? If you're importing more than what you are exporting, that means there is your trade deficit. It means you are taking goods from another nation, and in return you are paying them, rather than you are producing in your own country and sending or selling it to another countries. That is more profitable. It is always said that your exports should be more than your imports, but the data says that there is trade deficit and it is getting widened, which is a problematic situation. And if I talk that it has been widened to $202.4 billion during April-November 2024 due to increase in the gold and petroleum imports. Now, what is the reason? That we heavily imported what? We heavily imported gold and our petroleum products as well. And the current account deficit, if I talk about the current account deficit, so it is at 1.2% of the GDP for 2024-25. And if I talk about your foreign exchange reserves, these are at $644.4 billion, covering 99% of the external debt. Clear? Next we have challenges for our economy. What are the challenges that can be faced by our Indian economy in the coming times? Now, these are bifurcated into two. One is our global risk, that is at global level, like we are talking about international levels. Most of the you can say most of the countries are involved here. And if I talk about domestic risks, then these are few of the risks that are involved. First is rise in the trade deficit, which is that we are importing more than what we are exporting. This is one of the reasons, and this is one of the challenges. Next is extreme weather events, and next is food inflation. These can be few of the reasons, these can be few of the challenges that can be faced by our Indian economy. Next, if I talk about global perspective, so high public debt can be seen, geopolitical conflicts are there of course, and there are emerging technologies as well which can become challenges for our Indian economy. And next we have is banking and financial sector stability. So the report talks about the scheduled commercial banks. So GNPA ratio is declining, which is non-performing assets, right? It is gross non-performing asset. So the report says that it is declining, and it has declined to multi-year lows, and the rate on asset and the rate on equity has reached decadal heights. Next is that stress tests how resilience with the CRAR levels well above the regulatory minimums under the adverse scenarios. And the report also predicts that a possible increase in the bad loans. There is possible increase in the bad loans among the commercial banks, with the GNPA ratio is expected to rise from 2.6% in September and 3% by March 2026. Now, these are the expectations that are shown in the report. Next, if I talk about non-banking financial companies, so NBFCs says that NBFCs has showed strong performance with the robust capital adequacy ratio and your liquidity metrics as well. Risk that is included here has exposure to high yield borrowers and your potential liquidity mismatches. Urban cooperative banks have maintained your CRAR levels. So NBFCs of course has shown improvement somewhere. So these are the data, these are the things that you have to remember. Next is regulatory initiatives and reforms. If I talk about the cyber security, so the banking sector is trying its best to to heavily put control on the various fraudster activities so that fraudster activities can be reduced, taking help of either cyber securities and AI and whatnot. So cyber security की अगर मैं बात करूँ, so it has enhanced measures for fraud preventions and cyber resilience. And if I talk about consumer protection, so focus is on reducing fraudster risk by managing it properly. Transparency, this is said that there should the process of giving loan or the process of giving credit to the consumer should be transparent in manner. So transparency पे भी ध्यान दिया जा रहा है. And the report says that digital payment system should also be regularized so that the fraudster activities can be reduced. Next, if I talk about crypto assets, the RBI recognizes the potential risk for the crypto and your stable coins, including your monetary policy disruptions and your systematic vulnerabilities. Next, if I talk about your AI, that how banking sector or how RBI is considering AI and taking its help and making things work in a better way. So if I talk about AI, so increasing adoption in the banking sector, and of course AI is participating in every sector, be it banking and be it any other sector. The help of the AI is taken care of, is taken to increase or to improve each and every section of society. Next, it is used for the risk management, operations के लिए भी it is used, but challenges like explainability and cyber threats remain same. Next, it said that there are AI-driven interconnectedness that could amplify our risk during the market disruptions also. And if I talk about tokenization, so while still nascent, tokenization of assets possess risk of systematic interlinkages with the decentralized finance, which is DeFi. ठीक है. Next, the report talks about corporate sector performance. So if I talk about the sales growth, listed private non-financial companies recorded stable sales growth of 6.2% with the 9.6% growth in the services sector. So there is increase or there is betterment in the services sector. Debt metrics की अगर मैं बात करूँ, so debt to equity ratio is continue to decline, reflecting the improvement in the financial health. And if I talk about corporate debt to GDP ratio, that remains low if I compare it with the global peers. So this is a better thing for our economy. Next is government finances. So if I talk about fiscal deficit, this shows that there is reduction to 5.6% of GDP in 2023-24 and projected at 4.9% in 2024, indicating our fiscal consolidation. So fiscal deficit is what? The loan that is taken by the government for the betterment or for the betterment of the Indian economy or for the betterment of any of the economies. Next, it talks about capital expenditure. So there is increase in the capital expenditure by 16.7% during the 2014-15 data, and this supports the economic growth. Next, it talks about the GDP to debt to GDP ratio, that how much debt we are taken, the government takes if we compare it with our GDP. So the central government's debt to GDP ratios is expected to decrease from 62.7% in 2020-21 to 56.8% by 2024-25, which is of course good thing that our debt is getting decreased. Similarly, states' outstanding liabilities are projected to decline from 31% to 28.8%. This is also a good thing for our Indian economy. Next, it talks about systematic risk and resilience. So the systematic risk survey says that most of the risks are categorized as medium. Respondents highlights geopolitical conflicts. Of course, there are geopolitical conflicts that are giving rise to various of the problems. Next, there are external spillovers as a major near-term risk. And if I talk about the stress test, SCBs हो गए, हमारे जो NBFCs हो गए and जो mutual funds हैं, they are demonstrated as resilience under the adverse scenarios. Next, there is contagion analysis. This shows minimal systematic impact from the simulated failures of key financial institutions. This is the data that the report tells us. Next is key innovation and developments. So firstly, we have unified lending interface. Of course, we read in our previous video also where we discussed about schemes that there is increase in the unified lending system. Unified lending system is concerned, or it is connected with providing better credit opportunities, or you can say giving more access to giving more accessibility to the people of credit. So unified lending interface is expected to revolutionize the credit system. Similarly, this is similar to UPI's impact on payment. So basically, if I talk about UPI, so UPI was in interest of making payments easier in manner. And if I talk about lending interface, so it is concerned with providing credit in an easier way and to make people more accessible with it. So lending interface takes care of the credit, and UPI, which is payment interface, takes care of the payment system that now you are able to easily do from one place to another. Even if if one person is sitting in north, one person is sitting in south, they can easily make payments. That is because of UPI system. Next is UPI expansion. So we are collaborating with the cross-border collaborations as well within the countries like Singapore, UAE, and we are trying our best to internationalize it as well. Next, we talk about green finance. So there is increase in the focus of financing renewable energy projects and issuing our sovereign green bonds. This is because we are taking care of our sustainable financing. We are taking care of sustainable financing. Now, there are key concerns as well. Key concerns are with regard to public debt, with regard to global economic risks, and with regard to geopolitical conflicts as well. So if I talk about public debt, that is the loan that is taken by the government of India, that is taken by if I consider our Indian economy. So public debt is what? Loan that is taken by the government of India, and if it is getting increased, that is bad for our Indian economy only. So the report says while Union government's debt to GDP ratio is declining, it remains a long-term fiscal sustainability concerns. And if I talk about global economic risks, so the risks are included. The risks include stretched asset valuation, high public debt, prolonged geopolitical tensions, emerging technologies challenges which may threaten our global financial stability. So in this particular thing, we are taking into consideration our whole nation. We are taking into consideration our entire economies. And there are of course geopolitical conflicts as well. Persisting geopolitical tensions, they can disrupt many of the things, and they can give rise to many of the problems as well, be it supply chain, be it increase in the commodity prices, be it increase in the inflation, be it increase in the any other commodity, or be it increase in the financial market volatility as well. It would impact Indian economy, and it would impact our other nations as well. So increase or decrease, or you can say impact of one nation has impact on other nations as well. Okay? It is known as what? It is known as spillover effect. Next is technological risks. So what are the technological risks associated? So pehla, we have is cyber security threats. Second, we have is data privacy concern. And next we have is potential for the disruption in the financial services. This highlights the need for the robust and monitoring regulations. So the data says that we have to increase our hold on the regulations, and we have to make things more transparent, and we have to put hold on our monitoring also. And if I talk about climate change, so extreme weather conditions and transition to a low carbon economy pose significant risk to our financial institutions and to our broader economy as well. Okay? Now this is about the Financial Stability and Development Council, that is FSDC. So it was established and formed in 2010. ठीक है, as a non-statutory apex level body by the government of India. अब इसका objective क्या था? Strengthen करना हमारी financial stability को, to strengthen our financial stability mechanism and to foster our growth, our development of our financial sector. Now there is a composition of it. It is chaired by the Union Finance Minister. Members कौन है? It includes heads of the financial sector regulatories of RBI, SEBI, IRDAI, PFRDA and others also, the financial secretary, the finance secretary and the chief economic advisors as well. Okay, experts are invited for the meetings whenever there is a need of the experts. Of course, advisory is taken from them and their advice is taken into consideration. If I talk about the functions of the FSDC, so the basic function of it is to monitor and address the systematic risks that are associated with the financial sector. Next, if I say about the functions, if I come on the second function, so it talks about promotion of coordination among the regulators to resolve the inter-regulatory issues. Next, it enhances the mechanisms to deal with the financial crisis and to improve the efficiency in the financial sector. So these are the functions that are associated with your FSDC. ठीक है, ठीक है, यहाँ तक सभी को clear है? Everyone is clear with it? Everyone is clear with it? So this is the first part of your PIB compilation. Rest of the part will cover in the next video. This is the part 1. Rest of the part will cover in part 2, since there is a lot of data here, and of course there will be a lot of complications. There will be a lot of complications for aspirants as well to remember that. So take a break of 2 days. Remember this data, make questions on it, practice it, consider it, and we'll see more data on Monday and we'll come up with more reports and of course the government initiatives as well. So hope that this session was very helpful for you. If you have any doubt, you can tell that. I'll address your doubts and then we'll end the session. So if there are any doubts, you can tell to me. I'll address that and then we'll say goodbye to you. I think no one has any doubt. So okay, I end my session here. I'll meet you in the Monday's class and be prepared for that. We'll have more data to learn. We'll have more things to learn. So see you in the Monday session. Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.